Hi everyone, my name is Audrey, and today I'll be talking about the Gender Justice League, a trans-led organization based in Washington State, and how they use rhetorical strategies like framing and melodrama to push for gender justice. I want to talk about what makes their rhetoric feel so powerful and emotionally resonant in such a currently hostile political climate. Gender Justice League was founded in Seattle in 2012 by and for transgender people. Their work focuses on healthcare access, public safety, mutual aid, and state-level public policy advocacy. They're active across the Pacific Northwest, especially in Seattle, Bellingham, and Olympia, and have mobilized during Pride, legislative hearings, and community crises. Their exigency driving their work is the nationwide wave of anti-trans legislation, particularly targeting youth, healthcare providers, as well as education. In Washington state, Gender Justice League has responded to bathroom bills, medical bans, and threats against trans-inclusive schools. Importantly, their rhetoric isn't just reactive. It's very strategic and values-based. Their slogans, such as Protect Trans Kids and Trans Joy's Resistance, are very carefully crafted reframings. These messages function as counter-public discourse, asserting trans people's rights to speak, define themselves, and build community outside a very harmful dominant narrative. As Patterson and Spencer 2020 argue, trans movements like Gender Justice League are claiming rhetorical agency by shaping their own public communication outside of traditional academic or state platforms. The first rhetorical strategy I'll explore is framing. As Pizzullo and Sandler 2007 write in their work on environmental justice, framing doesn't just highlight issues, it defines what's at stake and who gets to speak. Gender Justice League uses framing to redefine key ideas. Safety is no longer about the police or laws, it's about bodily autonomy and mutual care. Healthcare isn't optional, it's about survival. And being trans isn't a problem, it's can be a source of power and beauty. Atwood, Morgenroth, and Olson 2024 found that a lot of anti-trans rhetoric relies on benevolent sexism and gender essentialism, the idea that protecting women and children requires excluding trans people from sports and bathrooms or healthcare. Gender Justice League flips that framing by emphasizing that trans youth are the ones who need the most protection and that their inclusion is very necessary, not dangerous. And their use of the phrase protect trans kids takes the conservative family values frame and turns it inside out. Here are some key examples of the Gender Justice League's framing strategies in action. One key slogan is "Trans is Beautiful," which transforms the history of marginalization into a narrative of pride and survival. This isn't just about visibility, it's about redefining what beauty and resilience mean in the context of trans lives. I thought the trans pride poster was a good picture to pair with the idea, as it kind of represents being out and proud in a very visible and special way. Another major example is healthcare as a human right. This slogan reframes gender-affirming care as a fundamental right rather than a controversial issue or a luxury. It positions access to trans healthcare as a matter of survival, not opinion, and ties the movement into broader justice discourses like public health and civil rights or bodily autonomy. These phrases reshape the way the public understands trans identity, need, and value. Through reframing, Gender Justice League asserts that trans people are not meant to be pushed aside or marginal, but rather central to the real definitions of justice. The second rhetorical theory that I'm using is melodrama. Schwartz 2006 argues that melodrama is a rhetorical tool that turns invisible suffering into visible emotional urgency. Melodrama creates moral binaries, heroes and villains, victims and protectors. The organization uses this form strategically to mobilize support and make the stakes very clear. One of the clearest examples is Protect Trans Kids. Here, trans youth are positioned as innocent, endangered, and worth saving, a classic melodramatic setup. But instead of manipulating fear, the Gender Justice League channels empathy and care and moral responsibility. Of course, melodrama also exists in anti-trans rhetoric. Shu 2022 explains how emotional currents like fear and disgust and pity are used to build moral panics, portraying trans people as threats to children or culture or morality. But the Gender Justice League's melodrama works differently. They use emotional appeals grounded in joy or community or sacredness. They aren't asking for any pity from people. All they want is to create a space where trans life is worth celebrating and defending. And by emphasizing both pain and joy, the organization's rhetoric expands the emotional range of what activism can look like. Their moral clarity doesn't come from just outrage alone, like the anti-trans rhetoric often does, but also love and resilience. For my analysis, together, framing melodrama allowed the Gender Justice League to operate on two different levels. Through framing, they redefined concepts like safety and identity. Through melodrama, they turned those definitions into emotionally resonant, morally urgent appeals. This combination is especially effective in our climate, such as right now, where trans lives are constantly debated, erased, or threatened. The organization doesn't just argue that trans people deserve rights. Part of their mission is to show that trans life is worth protecting and honoring and uplifting. That's why this past year, they've fought against every single bathroom bill, and they've hosted trans pride and things like that. And doing so, they're pushing policy as well as hopefully changing the public perception of what gender justice looks and feels like. Here are the main sources I referenced in this presentation. I've included class readings by Pizzullo and Sandler and Schwartz, as well as some academic sources that I found that expand on trans activism rhetoric. Thank you for watching and listening. I appreciate it.